Howdy everyone, and welcome back to The More You Grow. I've been out here with my buddy Boomhauer from the YouTube channel BoomhauerTV17, and we've been doing a little fishing. I found out the hard way that you don't bring bananas fishing. If you think that just sounds ridiculous or you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to leave a link to the video that we did just a few days ago up above and down in the description. Bananas and fishing don't work. I found that out.
At all. You found it out the hard way.
We did. But now that I'm out here, the way Boomhauer works is he is about fish like I am with plants. And y'all know how I love plants. This guy loves fishing. So I wanted to kind of do a crossover of what we're doing on our channel with kind of what you're doing on your channel. Because here on The More You Grow, we try to focus on how ecology and natural habitat can be put into our favor a little bit. How we can kind of make it work for us, and that applies to fishing as well. So my first question for you is, what are some natural habitats that fish use, and how can people look out for those to maybe find fish a little bit easier?
So when I'm looking for natural habitats, I look at it from a different perspective than maybe everybody else does. So when you're looking outside, outside your house, or outside, just anywhere you're looking, you see grass, shrubs, and then the trees up top. When you're bass fishing or crappie fishing, any type of fishing in the lake, it's opposite. Because, for example, the grass that's on bottom, that can now be your moss. Your moss is going to be on top of close to the very top of the water. Your shrubs, they're kind of going to be mid-level-ish, kind of in a way. And your trees are going to reach all the way to the very bottom. Your trees reach bottom like opposite of outside. Your trees are at the very top. You have to look to the very top to see your trees. Your trees touch bottoms. And when I'm fishing natural habitats, when I'm looking for moss, I'm looking for cattails, I'm looking for lily pads, I'm looking for, like I said, trees. I'm looking for trees not only in the water, trees that are hanging over, casting shade. Shade is a wonderful thing to fish, especially in the summertime, in these hot months in Texas where it's like 95 in the shade.
Everybody likes shade, even the fish.
Exactly. So when we're looking for shade, especially here in Texas, like I said, the fish are doing the same thing. So shade's a wonderful thing, and those trees that are hanging over, that natural habitat that's not even technically in the water, it's on the outside of the water, they love that as well. So natural habitats, trees go all the way to the bottom. You have your moss, you have your lily pads, and those all play a big difference. Your lily pads and your trees are going to hold a lot more bigger bass than they say your moss, because your moss has a lot smaller areas that your smaller fish and your bait fish can hide. So that's pretty much all I have for natural habitats.
And so kind of on that note, while natural habitats I think are your best bet, that's the way I would go. If anything, I'm sure that man-made structures also play a role in trying to find fish. They utilize the things we put in the lake, whether they were meant to be there or not. So what are some man-made structures that people can kind of look for when they're going fishing to where fish might be hanging out at?
So, the obvious things are, bridges. You have your docks, and, just like this little pier we have here behind us. Those are the easy things to find. Now, the harder things to find are like sunken culverts. You can actually have what are called crappie condos. And people, I really don't like this concept, but people will build like a tree out of PVC pipe and dump it in the lake. Yes, they're wonderful habitats, but I'm not a fan of it, because I'd rather put a dead cedar tree, because it's natural. It's a natural thing going into the lake. You're not putting a foreign object that's technically not supposed to be in the lake into it that can break apart. I'm not about that. And they also have something called PVC cubes, where they take a big, they make this big cube and they wrap pipe all in it. And it's a wonderful habitat for fishing. I'm on game for building a habitat for fish to have that's man-made. But like I said, I'd rather have it made from natural materials. But you can also have, like I'm sitting on right here. A lot of times around bridges, you'll have concrete that's fallen off. You have big rocks that are, falling off from the side. We've seen those big rocks that are sitting underneath the bridges. Yeah. A lot of times those fall off, and those work great throwing a crankbait on. or throwing a wacky rig. Oh, those work wonders. I love fishing that. Those man-made, the rocks, yes, you know, they're maybe kind of man-made, kind of natural, but they're put there by man. They were not there naturally.
Right.
So those are some man-made structures. You know, there's multiple man-made structures you can find. Sunken cars, sunken boats. I don't know how many times I've fished sunken boats. Somebody lose their boat. I've caught many a bass off of those before. It's weird to find, but it happens.
So it's kind of like either way, whether it's natural or man-made, fish just use what's available.
Exactly.
They're going to adapt to what they have.
Exactly.
And so one of the next questions I have is, say we're looking at bass or any fish that you're fishing for, how does their habitat change throughout the year? It's saying, are they in the same places they are in summertime as they are in wintertime, or how does the area where fish are change throughout the seasons and throughout the day, if it's a hot part of the day? Just how does the habitat change based on the different?
So just like us, we're not at the beach in the middle of the winter. We just don't do that. And we're not skiing down slopes in the middle of the summer.
No.
We're at bass and fish are in different places when the water's at different temperatures. Right now in the summertime, early in the morning, late in the afternoon, they're in the shallows. Other than that, they're catching shade or they're in deep water. But here in the fall, which is right around the corner, hopefully here in Texas, it may be summer for another month here.
We're gonna have we gotta enjoy all 10 days of fall we're gonna get this year.
Right? But in the fall, all the fish are feeding up, getting ready for winter, and they're heading to the mouths of creeks, because all the bait fish are heading to the mouth of creeks to get ready for their spawn, to get ready, and they're chasing phytoplankton. That's my favorite thing in the lake, is phytoplankton, because that controls everything in the lake. When the wind gets to moving and pushing phytoplankton, the bait fish follow, the bass follow, the crappie follow, everything follows. So in the fall, like I said, they're moving into the mouths of creeks. Now in the winter time, they're up around shrubs in the shallow water. You can catch 45-pound catfish in like 4 foot of water, because they're not going to be out in that deep water, because sunlight does not penetrate that deep. You cannot get warm. And are we going to go swimming in the summertime? No, we can't get insulated. We'll freeze.
I guarantee you there's been times I've swum in the lake and you get down to that deep water, it is cold.
It is cold.
Cold
The colder down you go, the colder the water gets. The little farther down you go, the colder it gets. So in the wintertime, they're in the shallows. And then it comes around the spring, and they kind of have the same habits that they do in fall, but they're not really in the mouths of creeks. They're in the shallows, chasing those small, tiny bait fish that are just coming out of spawn. So you know, like you said, does it change? Yes, it changes based on the temperature of the water.
Right. And just kind of coming back to a point you made, I like to mention this because a lot of people might think differently. Whereas he's talking about phytoplankton, and for those who don't know, phytoplankton is these microscopic kind of algae and plants. That's what turns your water green back here. And a lot of times if you're looking at a perfectly clear lake, you don't see many fish in that. Why? Because the phytoplankton are the beginning of the food chain. And that's really what turns that water green like this, is if you got good phytoplankton, you're gonna have a nice green lake, green pond. And that's what the little bait fish, the little minnows, are going for the phytoplankton. The next fish up, like the perch or something, are going for those, and then you have your bass and so on. So phytoplankton is the key to it all, and you want to have that nice green color to your ponds if you can get it.
I didn't know that that was the reason why the water's green.
Right, the water is green because the phytoplankton are photosynthesizers. They are gathering sunlight. They're just like the trees and the grass. They're green because they have chlorophyll, and that green color is why the ponds and the lakes you see are a green color, because of all the phytoplankton in that.
I learned something today. That's awesome.
Yeah, the joys of having an ecology degree.
The more you know.
Okay, so the next question I have for you is, how does a fish's preferred habitat influence its food sources?
Honestly, that's kind of the other way around. A fish's habitat is really based off of what food it's going after. Like I said, in the fall, when the fish are going into the mouths of the creeks, they're chasing those shad. When I said they're running through the trees, they're chasing those shad. Every single time a bass is moving habitats, it's chasing the bait fish. The bait fish are the reason a bass moves habitats. Now you have, like in smaller tanks like this, you're gonna have bass that sit around in his spot. That's his tree, get away, that's mine. Because they don't have huge places to go. But in bigger lakes, it really depends on what they're chasing, and they really don't have a preferred spot. They really don't have a preferred habitat.
It's just wherever the food is.
It's wherever the food is.
There's kind of an interesting thing about that. It's where things in nature and habitats follow a same pattern. It's kind of like the wolves following the elk from up in the mountains down into the valleys. They really don't have a preferred habitat. It's just wherever the food is.
Exactly.
And it's funny how that works the same way in aquatic habitats. It can be wolves following buffalo the way they used to do. And so it's just funny how that's a repeating pattern where the predators are just following the prey.
That's all.
So knowing where your prey is, or in this case your bait fish, understanding how the seasons change and how the bait fish move depending on where they are in the lake and the time of year, that's where your fish are going to be that you're trying to catch. So
that's the key to catching fish, is knowing what your bait fish are doing. That's the absolute key. Matching the hatch. If you haven't learned anything from this video, if you're wanting to catch fish, match the hatch, and that means match the bait fish. You can match what they're eating, you will catch fish. Right.
It's not worrying about where the fish you're trying to catch is, because they could be anywhere at that point. It's knowing where your bait fish are is how you're going to catch your big fish.
Exactly.
And so kind of on the note you just went off of, if there's anything anyone wants to learn, what are some suggestions you have for new fishers out there? Is there anything you'd recommend for people on finding fish?
For a new fisherman, I tell everybody the same thing. Start simple. Start simple. You don't have to have a boat. You don't have to have a kayak. You don't have to have a fish finder. You don't have to have top of the line Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's poles. You don't have to have all kinds of insane lures. Start simple. Match the hatch. Go buy a cheaper pole, because you're learning the process. It takes a very, very long time to truly understand bass fishing. Bass fishing is a sport. It's an awesome sport. I love the sport. Just start simple. Like I said, spinnerbait, crankbait, rattle trap, and a couple of topwater lures. That's all you need. You don't have to have a tackle box this big full of 9,000 different lures, because you really don't need it. Well, we were fishing the other day. How many lures did we use?
We used 2, I think.
2. Crankbaits and spinnerbaits. That's all we used, and we caught all the fish we caught in our video on those 2 lures.
Once we got rid of the bananas.
Once we got rid of the bananas, that was it. And for finding fish, follow, for one tip, if you're in a boat or on walking on land, follow the birds. Follow the birds. And I'm not talking about like mockingbirds or stuff like that. Follow the birds that are out there feeding. Because if the birds are feeding, more likely there's bait fish. And like we said, the bait fish are controlling what the bass and the other fish are doing.
Right.
That's a good tip I have.
Yeah, so don't follow the chickens. They're not going to find...
Yeah, the chickens aren't going to lead you
anywhere. They're not going to lead you to any fish. Well, I think that's all we have today. We've gone over some awesome things, and one thing I always recommend for people to do on my channel or any subject is just do your research. Go look online, learn a little bit, and then apply what you learn into what you're trying to do.
That's a good tip. I like that.
So yeah, just always try to do your research before you try to do anything. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you have any more questions for me or for Boomhauer, go check out his channel, BoomhauerTV17. He's got Tuesday tips, he's got boom fishing. So he's gonna be telling you a whole lot more about fishing and a lot of other cool things. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and go check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, I hope you'll join me right here
on the more you grow.
Yes.
Yeah, I got it that time.